Welcome to the Battlefield Show. I'm your host, Sage Goodwin, and as always, I'm joined by Sammy Boy, in the person, in the flesh, in the digital mindset. Back again. How you doing, man?
It's good to be back, man. It's been a good minute since we've actually had a chat because, as I'm sure the listeners will know, last week was done in a bit of a obscure way. Yeah. So it's actually good
communicating by like smoke signals.
Yeah. It was literally like listening to your audio and then in between you like say a little note for me and stuff. It's like we're literally sending like the note in a glass bottle across the ocean to each other. It's just delayed conversation. So yeah, anyway, it's good to be back. Hopefully there's still no internet issues today because we are still running a bit of a bootleg setup, but it should do for this episode.
We've been praying to the internet gods and hopefully they hear our cry. I was like, I could just like leave it silent for Sammy, but I'm going to leave him a little message in here and see how he likes it.
It cracked me up. I didn't hear that.
Excellent. But in today's episode, we're talking about some big news. We're still getting our heads wrapped around the changes in the recent updates. We haven't had a chance to hop in those quite yet in terms of the new map and actually play it. But we do have some news from the earnings call around Battlefield that we want to get into today. So let's hop right in. Okay, so the ever-expanding journey on Battlefield and the future Battlefields and the content that they're slowly drip-feeding us continues in this EA earnings call. So the last time they had an earnings call, they didn't say anything. But this one, they said some things. And,
You've summed up my thoughts exactly.
Well, thanks for listening to this week's episode of the Battlefield Show. So this Andrew Wilson, I believe he said, I think it was him, someone on the EA who represented EA on the call, says the next Battlefield will be a reimagination of the Battlefield franchise. And I tweeted this. I was like, but haven't they said that for literally every single Battlefield game since like Battlefield 4?
Yeah.
There is no such thing as like a quote unquote true Battlefield experience because they quote unquote reimagine it every freaking time.
Yeah, like you could argue that Battlefield 1 is a reimagination because that was very different. Then Battlefield 5 was a reimagination, and now 2042 is as well. So it's
we've almost had a decade of reimagination.
Yeah, it's partly got me. When I first read it, I'm like, oh no, what does this mean? Like, is it going to be straying further from the core Battlefield? But then also, the more I think about it, it's like, does it mean a reimagination of 2042 where they're reimagining it back into normal Battlefield? Is that what they're getting at? So,
it's like going so far in one direction, you end up coming back and meeting at the same point. Is that what's happening? I hope that's what's happening.
So it's it's one of those things that I know we are all going to read into it heaps, but I also don't know if we really can. I don't know if there's actually, how important it is, because they do say a lot of stuff in these earnings calls that I guess, I don't know, a lot of these people they're not actually as in tune with gaming as we are. They're obviously more like the businessmen side of it. So they just kind of read out some buzzwords and that's about it. So I don't know whether to like fully believe in what they're saying, or it could be the opposite where they legitimately are like, nah, this game wasn't as successful as we wanted, so we're going to like properly reimagine the series. So I don't know what to make of it.
But instead of like picking it up where Battlefield 2042 is going to end, which I feel like is a pretty nice place to begin in the next game, hopefully they continue with that instead of like, you know what? Battlefield 2042 was a little bit of a rough launch. Let's just do something entirely different instead of learning from the freaking 1.5 to 2 years of continued updates and content and, all the things that eventually happens with a DICE game where they launch controversy or some big problem, they put in a crap ton of work, and then it eventually gets good, they end it, and then wash, rinse, repeat.
Yeah, maybe that's what the reimagination means. Maybe they launch a game properly this time. Maybe
That
that's
would
what they
be
thought.
that'd be a big shock.
Yeah, that would definitely be a reimagination of the Battlefield franchise. 'Cause that's not how
Launch
it's
without
definitely going.
controversy.
Yeah, yeah, it's a weird one. To think about.
Basically, this is what I said. Build a house before you try to build an event center with no experience. Like, start smaller. Like,
Yeah.
what all that I want is a foundation that they can build upon, that has everything that they've had to add in subsequent updates to Battlefield 2042, squad management, all of those types of things. The continuing, like, yay, they added it, but it should have been there in the beginning. Classes, all of that kind of stuff. I think that's where they should start. They should start with, let's look back at all the things the fans liked in past Battlefield games. Let's add all of that to the base and then build on top of that foundation, instead of like, this is the joke I made. It's like, DICE, we're going to revolutionize the wheel. Fans, you're going to make it faster? DICE, how about square wheels? Fans, but wheels are the best way to move. DICE, squares.
That is so true, though. Like, and that's what. Obviously, it's hard to like fully read into what they're saying. So maybe we're just like almost having a go at them, and they are thinking the same way as us. It's hard to tell, but just based off their previous the last few years, that is what we have to base off. That they are trying to like reinvent the wheel, and it's like you said, just start with just make a really simple, good game. It doesn't need to be this big, huge 128 players, big freaking tornadoes, all this stuff. Just make a nice, fun game, even smaller scale. I don't care if they make it 24v24 and just make it a bit more like focused and a bit more, like smaller scale to an extent. And maybe that's even what the reimagination could be getting at, that they're going to scale it down a little bit or whatever. I don't know. But just, make a game that plays smoothly, has a nice class system, nice progression system, just feels nice to play. Just look at even I know Call of Duty's had its own issues, but like that is just kind of the same thing every year. They've got their system that works, and they don't really stray from that too much. Go back to that with Battlefield, where do what Battlefield 3 and 4 did, and just have that core Battlefield game, and then from there, like you said, if it launches well, then you can add stuff on top of that. You can even before launch add some. They always do something with like either Levolution or the Behemoth system, or there's always something, right? And that's fine. If they make a really good game and it's got tornadoes again, that's okay. I don't care about that. Just don't make tornadoes the focal point of your game, because that is not what anyone cares about. They need to focus on the actual important elements and just make a good shooter that is very just simplistic. It also doesn't need to launch with 40 maps and 150 weapons. Just make it small, simple, and good, right? And then from there, if for the first time since probably literally Battlefield 3, we have a good launch, we're then not starting from behind. They don't need to catch up, and then once it's 2 years into the life cycle, then it starts getting good. They're already at that spot. So then we can get 2 years of adding on to the game, and they can do crazy stuff after that. And it won't matter as much if they launch this big new game mode 6 months later and it sucks. People won't care that much because the base game's already good. So it's just that new mode's not that fun. Look at Battlefront 2, where that got to a really good spot, and then Supremacy came out. People didn't actually love it that much, but no one really cared because the game had gotten to a really good spot. They'd done all the Clone Wars stuff, and it was just there's a new mode it sounded cool and it's a bit disappointing, but I just don't care about it. That's the issue, that when you launch a game poorly, which is ironic saying that, using Battlefront 2 as an example, because that launched poorly too. But yeah, I don't know. I just think they just need to focus on the launch, make it a good game, and then, like you said, from there, then they can expand it. And they can do some wacky stuff after. I don't care. Once the game's good, then do what you want. And if it doesn't hit, it doesn't really matter. But if your game sucks and you try and implement some crazy stuff, it just gets memed to hell, everything in 2042, the tornadoes and all that kind of thing, the specialists. The game wasn't good at launch, and all of those things just became memes. If the game was
Yeah.
really good at launch, but like just the specialist system just didn't work, people probably wouldn't care that much, and they'd still say, "Oh, bring back the class system." But there wouldn't be this like animosity in the community where people were just like roasting the hell out of the game. People would just be like, "Oh, I don't really like this that much. I hope they bring it back." But the rest of the game's good enough that people still want to play it. So I hope that's their focus, but I don't know. It's hard to know what DICE is thinking at this point.
I think we've all wondered what a DICE game would look like if they started where they ended. If they started Battlefront 2 where they ended that game, I think we would have had... Already it was one of the best Star Wars games, but I think it would be undoubtedly the best done Star Wars game and possibly one of the best supportive game stories out there.
Yeah.
Same can be said for 2042. What does it look like if Battlefield as a franchise actually launched a good game?
It is
Like
pretty mental
that.
to think about that. Like, imagine if this was the launch state, not even the amount of content. They could go back to the amount that they hadn't launched, but just the state of the game.
Mm-hmm.
Imagine it launching right now. I think it would actually be really well received. Maybe the specialist would be still a bit controversial, but obviously in the class system now, I think it would be enough that people might be a bit more forgiving. But like if the game launched like this, and I'm not even talking about all the new like maps and stuff, I'm just take them out, just put the base maps with their current like updates to them, and just launch this game right now. I think it genuinely people would be like, wow, this game is actually really good. And then from there, you add those new maps in and add way more content because they're not fixing the game up. Like that is actually really kind of weird to think about how good that game could be if they did that.
It would be insane. I think we have a clear example of this too, because when you look at, it's funny that we've never brought this up on the Battlefield show, even though like it's been exploding. BattleBit. If you look at BattleBit, that game is literally like Minecraft Battlefield, and its numbers, its player base is dwarfing that of Battlefield 2042 because it went back and said, hey, what makes a Battlefield game a Battlefield game? Throughout the decades, they went back and they looked at like what works, what doesn't work, and drew influences on Battlefield as a franchise. And then they just put basically Minecraft or Roblox or whatever you want to say it, like super like low poly, like square based combat. And it works. People don't care about the visuals. They care about the gameplay and how good it is.
Yeah, that is a really good point. Like I actually think BattleBit is actually a really good example for like not just Battlefield, just like so many studios out there that they should look at that and go, this game just proved people don't care about the big flashy stuff. Just make a good game and then put the big flashy stuff over the top because you've got the budget to do it, and BattleBit probably doesn't have the budget to do that. But make the core game good, and then after that do whatever you want, within reason. But that's a really good example that I hope they look at that. I hope they see, wow, this game that was launched by I think a group of 3 people. I could be wrong on that, but at least I know when it started it was like 3 people working on it. This game has blown up and is really fun, and it's like the lowest quality game you can imagine in terms of like the look of it. It just I don't know, they really do need to look at that. That's a prime example of what it shows, what people care about. It's not about the big flashy stuff. It's about making a core game. The core fundamentals of your game need to be good, and after that people will enjoy it, and then you can do what you want. Sell your skins and do your battle passes and all that stuff. That's fine, but make the game enjoyable first, and it will do well. That is literally proven by a bunch of people in like a little home startup type situation. They're not a $1 billion corporation like EA.
Yeah. It's crazy. Like I can't believe DICE sees the success of BattleBit. They see the fan base. They see the numbers, because you can go on Steam. It's only on Steam, and you can compare the numbers on Steam versus Battlefield. And the numbers don't lie when you see BattleBit like surging in popularity and Battlefield 2042 kind of like slowly pittering along. I don't see how you as a company say, oh yeah, let's totally reinvent the wheel again and start from I don't know what's going on here.
Yeah, it's kind of why I need some clarification on what reimagination means, because it's like, I think we all initially read that as, they're going to drastically depart from what Battlefield normally is. That's what I see as a reimagination of something. You're taking something that used to be and you're kind of like putting a new spin on it. For me, that is Battlefield 2042. That is a reimagination of Battlefield. It could almost be a spin-off game. It doesn't actually...
Mm-hmm.
It's almost like Battlefield Hardline for me. It's not quite a main series game, even though it like officially is. But to me, I kind of class it in there with Hardline and like those sorts of games where there's the Battlefield 3 and 4 and 1 and 5. They're the mainline games. This just doesn't feel like one because it feels like a reimagination. So what does that mean then? Are they reimagining the core Battlefield game, or are they reimagining it from 2042 and taking it back to the core Battlefield? I just don't know, and I wish. It's kind of why I hate these conference calls that they do, because they throw around a bunch of buzzwords that, like I said, these are people that aren't that in tune with gaming. They're just businessmen.
Yeah.
So they don't understand. They probably don't even get how much. They probably are just saying this on a call and just thinking, and they just go about their day. They don't know that on Twitter and in podcasts and YouTube videos like we're doing right now, people are freaking out about this stuff, going, what the hell does that mean? Oh my God.
Yeah.
Is this good? Is this bad? Like, they don't understand the gravity of what they're saying. So I wish that they would actually clarify, either just don't say anything at all or clarify it.
Yeah.
Like, this is what I hate about the gaming industry, is that they'll just throw something out there and then it's just like left up to us. If you're going to say something, say it properly, be transparent, tell us what you're thinking. Mm-hmm. Or if you're not ready to tell us what you're thinking, just shut your mouth. Just don't say anything. And then when it's ready to be said, then say it. That's what I really just dislike about it. Especially like, it's understandable to an extent with actual dev companies and stuff, but when it's like the suits at the top, you just don't know what you're talking about. So just like stay out of it at this point. They need to just learn that they don't understand the gaming industry. They understand business better than most people, but they do not understand gaming whatsoever.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. But on that same note too, like we even have this is another like one of those pieces that I'm like, oh, not having a great feeling about it. DICE senior producer Ryan MacArthur says Battlefield 2042 Season 6 is going to be one of those really interesting moments where people are going to go, well, I didn't expect that, but that's really Battlefield. So like, I feel like on the one hand, they're doing some very interesting things with like Battlefield 2042. They're getting into a good space, but like at the same moment, they're doing all of this like experimentation with Battlefield 6 or Battlefield 2042. And then they're going to reinvent the wheel after that. Because, like, Battlefield 2042 now versus when it launched are, like, two incredibly different games.
Yeah. Yeah, they literally do feel like a whole different, like, franchise, not even just a different Battlefield game.
Yeah.
Like one...
So which one are they reinventing?
Yeah, that's... And, yeah, the quote from Ryan MacArthur is... I don't know what... That fills me with excitement and stress in the same sentence. Like, that's really
I didn't expect anything with Battlefield 2042.
Yeah. This is going to be sad to think about, but that's really Battlefield. Does that mean they're going to just cancel the support immediately, or is that what they're getting at there? Because that's kind of what it feels like a little bit.
Too soon, man. Too soon.
Yeah. Like, I don't know. It sounds like it's meant to be positive, but I'm finding it hard to get excited because I'm like, yeah, does this mean they're going to do a really cool content drop and then just be like, all right, boys, we're out. I'll see you next time. I'm so...
well, I didn't expect that, but that's really Battlefield.
Yeah. See what I mean? Read that sentence and tell me that's not Battlefield 5.
It's 100% Battlefield 5.
It's like, oh, damn, this new content update. Wow, I didn't expect that. Oh, they also cancelled the game? Yep, that's really Battlefield.
Yep.
Oh, God.
It's funny because it's true.
Yeah, we need to clip this part because if they if they literally cancel support, we're gonna have to put this online and make
Yeah.
it go
Oh,
viral
yeah.
because we're calling it before it happens.
At all of the devs.
Yeah.
Okay, we're finishing off Battlefield 2042 with Season 6. Okay, guys, we're canceling support for Battlefield 2042.
God.
Yeah. I was talking to a buddy of mine. This is probably a couple weeks ago. He's done a lot of different things. He runs a lot of different businesses. He's like fixed a various amounts of houses. We're currently in the process of like moving into our own house that we bought, and we had to get the sewer line checked out, and it pointed off in a really weird direction. So we theorized, and he was like, "Okay, this is probably what it is." We get someone to scout it out. He's exactly right. And he was basically like, I really just wish I could be pleasantly surprised every now and then. Like, I wish I didn't have to be right all of the time. Like, if my theories were like, oh, it wasn't that bad, that would be awesome. I feel like that's us with Battlefield right now. Like, we've been around the community for long enough, and we've been in the space covering the game for long enough, specifically around 2042. I feel like we have a really good idea of like what's going to be happening in the Battlefield space, especially when it comes to DICE's approach to Battlefield. So I totally could see that happening.
Yeah, I reckon the one thing, not to say like it probably sounds like I'm saying we're always right. We're not, but like I feel like the only thing we've been legitimately wrong with was that at the end of season 4, we both kind of had the feeling that they were just going to end it, and then they announced season 5. That's really the only thing I can think of where they've actually shocked us, and I'm more also just talking about not just us, but like the whole community. But for the most part, everything else, we've all kind of guessed, like, how it's going to go. The only real exception is, with Season 6 and beyond, we don't know. They haven't given us any, like, anything to go off. Except for the previous games where we just think, okay, they're probably going to cancel it at a moment's notice. That's all we have to base it off. But, yeah, I don't know. I'm not sure. I'm just not sure whether to expect this to be a good thing or a bad thing. I'm going to try and just forget they even said that until whatever it is happens.
I'm not listening.
Yeah.
Yeah, I wonder like what their plan is here, because I think, like we've said before, I think that Battlefield 2042 is the perfect opportunity to experiment with all these different things. But I feel like EA has a different viewpoint when it looks at Battlefield as a franchise. Because what they wanted to do with this game, we have to go back to the beginning. They said this game was going to be the foundation of what Battlefield is moving forward.
True. Yeah,
they said that.
About that. Yeah.
And Marcus Leto's team was supposed to add like a section, like basically another game that like connects to this Battlefield 2042 universe. And then they found out, oh, hey, people don't like this game as much as we hoped they would. And the specialists are kind of annoying. And all of these things that we thought were going to be the future of Battlefield, well, it turns out nobody really likes them. So let's abort that. And let's go back to the beginning, fix Battlefield 2042, and see what we can do in terms of the foundation of the Battlefield franchise in the next game?
Yeah, it's all very... The more we talk about this, actually, the more confused that I get with where they're going with this. And I'm also reading that quote again, a reimagination, but then it says, as a truly connected ecosystem. So
yes,
what you just said about 2042 was kind of meant to be like almost the base of the new Battlefield, and kind of like what Warzone's done, where...
Would you describe it as a truly connected universe?
Well, not so much, but I wonder if the next game will be like... Yeah, if that's what they mean, where they're going to kind of base it in this, this same universe, and it's going to be like almost a branch off from this game. Like it could be that Marcus Leto studio. They could just be making like a single player Battlefield game or something, and it's like it's still part of this ecosystem, but it's maybe it's like 80% single player and there is a multiplayer element, but that's not like the main point behind the game or something. Like, I don't know. It's just so weird to think about when they say reimagination that I don't know whether to think it's a small reimagination or like they're fully just go on their own way. Like EA has the whole meme with EA saying that single player games are like dead, blah blah blah. And now obviously they're
Even
not.
though the reason that they're so successful this whole quarter was because of freaking a single player game.
Yeah, and so now I'm like, okay, well now they know single player games are good. Are they going to just make a single player Battlefield game now? And they just go on the complete opposite way. And they're like, oh, actually, hang on, this works really. Nah, who wants to play multiplayer? Well, let's just make a single player game. So like, yeah, I don't know what to expect. I don't know. I kind of don't want to look into it too much, but the more that I think about it, the more like intrigued I am. Intrigued and nervous. Like it's not a good level of intrigue. It's like it's like if you've got like I don't know, if you're feeling really sick and you look up your symptoms online, you know you're just going to find out someone's going to tell you you've got cancer or something, but
I'm going to die.
Yeah, but you're still kind of like, but I kind of want to just know what it is. That's kind of what I'm like with this. I'm like, I'm probably going to find something here that I don't like, but I still think I want to know what it is.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, God.
I love that analogy because it's so accurate. I feel like a lot of enjoying Battlefield games is like watching a train wreck. Like, it's probably going to be horrible, but you can't like look away.
Yeah, you're drawn to it.
Yeah, like you need to see what happens. You need to know what's going on because like it's fascinating, it's terrifying, destructive, and generally like very interesting.
Yeah, it's a very this whole thing that came out, like, was this yesterday or today? I can't really even remember. I think it was yesterday.
I think it was yesterday.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Ever since then, I've been just seeing a lot of talk about it, and it's all very, like, just very interesting to me that, especially the timing of when they've said this, I wonder if that's also pointing at 2042 and whether that is coming to an end. And, like, there's just so many things to think about, and all of it could be overthinking. They could just go ahead with season bloody 10 of Battlefield 2042. Like, we don't know, but all the timing makes it hard to not overthink all of this stuff. And like I said, because they're so vague with their descriptions, like we don't know what reimagination means, because isn't this one a reimagination? If
we're going to transformationalize it,
we're like all very, let's just say they're all as similar as like Battlefield 3 and 4 are to each other. Let's just say that Battlefield 1 and 5 and 2042 were all really similar to 3 and 4, and they said this, then we would kind of know what it is. They'll be like, okay, we're going to get something that's drastically different than the other Battlefield games. But something that's drastically different from 2042 could be Battlefield 1, it could be Battlefield 4, it could be any of those. Could be Battlefield Hardline. It's just impossible to know because they're all so different. So like you said at the start, they are all reimaginations, really. It's not Call of Duty where it's pretty much just like really the same game every year, but with a whole new setting and like all that sort of stuff. They are all reimaginations. So it's, I don't know. I keep getting drawn back to that word, trying to think about what they're getting at, and I just don't know. It's
what does it mean? What does it mean?
As I go.
Yeah. I literally, I can't really think about like what that means from their perspective. Because if we look at the last 4 Battlefield games, they are all incredibly different from each other. I'd say maybe the most similar would be Battlefield 1 and Battlefield 5, just considering they're like era shooters. Like they are based on like a history there, but they're so different gameplay perspective, because you have the whole building mechanic of Battlefield 5, which changes the whole game. Like the gameplay is very different from Battlefield 1 to Battlefield 5. And then if you look from Battlefield 5 to Battlefield 2042, incredibly different. If you look at Battlefield 1 to Battlefield 4, worlds apart.
Yeah. And that's the part that confuses me, is that I don't know what a reimagination is anymore, because they all are. So,
what do words mean?
Like I said, we could all be just looking into it too much, and like we've gotten with every other Battlefield game in the last, like nearly decade now. They could just mean that in that way, that like, oh, it's just going to be pretty different than the previous one. And it could be Bad Company 3, and that could be something we really want, but it's just a bit different to 2042. Like they could be a good thing, but it's also just hard to think of it as a good thing, because I think at our core, we don't want a reimagination. We want like what the game used to be, and that isn't like Battlefield. If they like made a Battlefield 6 that is just really similar to Battlefield 4, that to me isn't a reimagination. That is like going back to your roots.
Yeah.
That's not a reimagination.
Give us the Battlefield 4 remake, and I think everyone would be way happier than quote unquote a reimagining of Battlefield.
Yeah. And even though, that's a good point. Even I'm not really all that fond of remakes. Like when Call of Duty did like the, I think it was Modern Warfare Remastered. I didn't really, because I'm like, I've already played it so much. Like it's not, I don't know. I don't really want that. I want new stuff, even if it's at the risk of it being not as good. But I think with Battlefield now, it's been so long that I think I would prefer that. I think I'd actually prefer just a remake than the
Well, it
chance
also
of
would
it being,
teach
like,
them
something
what
really
Battlefield
bad.
is again.
Yeah. And like they can do a remake and then like still make it its very own game after that with the live service. They can go off in their own tangents, but having the core game, it's almost like a multiverse of like, or a different like universe version of Battlefield 4, where we got the Battlefield 4 that we all know, but then we got this new Battlefield 4, and the live service is very different. We get a battle pass and we get free updates instead of the premium and stuff. Like that still would be very different. So yeah, they could do that. I find it hard to get fully excited about that because it's like,
I highly doubt it will ever happen, honestly.
Yeah.
But it's what should be done.
Yeah,
like if they want,
the thing is, they should almost not do a proper remake. They should do what they've done with Reclaimed, where they took real inspiration and put their own. And when I say put their own spin on it, I don't mean make specialists. I just mean like stick to the game, but just like instead of it be, Siege of Shanghai, for example, that map, they could just make the same type of content, but their own reimagination of that content, but with the base game being the same as Battlefield 4. So they've still got the same classes, a lot of the same weapons, but they can also have new weapons and stuff. And then, that can be their reimagination, is taking those maps and doing what they've done with Reclaimed, where you can tell it's very similar to the maps that we played, and it's kind of taken inspiration from those, but it's also not a direct copy of it. That would be the best way to do a remake, I think. Like doing... just doing like... Obviously not the title of it, but like doing Battlefield 4.5. That type of thing where it's not just Battlefield 4 remastered. It's Battlefield 4.5. So it's like similar but different. That's the best way that they can go about that. Because I do just think
Battlefield
that
4 Redux.
True. That would actually be not a bad title, I think. Actually I'd be down for that, to be honest. Because I just think that the only issue with doing a remake, even though if they remade Battlefield 4 and it was guaranteed to be as good of a game as that, all of us would be like, oh my God, that's what I want. I want a game that's as good as that. But it's still hard for me to get excited because it's like I've played that for like so many thousand. I think I've played like nearly 3,000 hours. It's like, it's so hard to want to play. I know that like 6 months after launch of that, I would be like, okay, I've already done this like so many times. There has to be something different to it, I think. They need to at least have a point of difference if they're going to do something like that. So, it's interesting to think about. But I also do agree that that's whether they were to remake a game or like whatever they do, they need to almost internally consider it a remake in terms of going back to that. Just go back to the class systems, go back to what we fell in love with. We don't need 128 players. We don't need specialists. We don't need all these big new shiny things. Just make the game good. Go back to what makes Battlefield, and then do your Tornado or your Behemoth system or your things like that, Levolution on top of it. Don't make that the core. Don't make that its identity, because it felt like at the launch of this game, the Tornado was the selling point. It shouldn't be. It's a cool thing. Don't get me wrong. It's cool, but I didn't buy it because there was a tornado in the trailer. That's not what excites me.
I feel like that's where like EA gets it wrong, or DICE both really get it wrong, is they think of what's the best like shiny new feature. It's like if you made the outside of a car like super like a Ferrari or whatever, or Lamborghini, whatever have you, and you put like a golf cart engine inside. Like, yeah, it looks cool, but you can't go 0 to 60 in like 3 seconds. It takes like 5 years. And I feel like that's been like the motto of the last like few iterations of Battlefield. And I would even, as much as I love like Battlefield 1, and like it's probably my favorite Battlefield game. I feel like even if you go back to that, like they had this very unique idea, which was World War One, which really hasn't, because it's such a complicated era and such a complicated war, nobody's really done it. And they did it.
Yeah.
But if you go in and you look at it and you see the behemoth system, which I think is really awesome, but if you look at like the parts of it, it's more marketing there really. And I feel like that was the beginning of the downfall, because if you go to Battlefield 5, they're like, well, let's just do the World War II thing again. Even though we've gotten they didn't realize that the thing about Battlefield 1 that made it so successful is because it was so unique in the game, like in the landscape of shooters. We've gotten so many World War II shooters. They're like, oh, we can make another World War II shooter. Look at how good Battlefield 1 was. It's like, yeah, but you missed the whole point.
I think that they need to, the selling point of it needs to be it's going back to its roots. That. I don't care what game they make. I don't care what they plan to do. They need to market it as that. This Battlefield game is going back to the roots. That would sell more copies than if you put a big cool tornado, or doesn't matter what they do. They put freaking nukes in the game. They can do whatever they want. Nothing in a trailer will look cooler or more enticing to the Battlefield fan base than literally saying we're going back to our roots. They could just put a black screen. They could do a trailer and just do like some gunshots in the background and just like the sound of war, and just put a black screen with white text saying we're going back to our roots, and it fades to black. That would be a better trailer than anything they could come up with. That's like a 2042 type trailer, because that's what the players want. So I hope that is their selling point, not let's make this new hero shooter, let's make this new whatever like that. No one cares. No one wants that. No, we just want a core Battlefield game, and then after that, like I said, go make a battle royale in it if you want. Go put 10 tornadoes per game. I don't care. Just make sure that the base game is good, and then that's the key ingredient that I think that they kind of miss. That they think they can sell a game regardless if it's good or not. It needs to be good in the first place. That will sell more copies than whatever marketing you want to do.
Yeah. Yeah, it's so frustrating, and I feel like I'm a little scared with the whole thing of like this is going to be the like foundation thing. Really, what they said Battlefield 2042 was going to be, this next Battlefield 2 or this next Battlefield or Battlefield 6, whatever they end up calling it, will end up being that foundation where they're going to have the single player thing, which is probably going to be Marcus Leto's. I think they've all but confirmed that Marcus Leto's going to be working on the campaign side of things. Ridgeline Games is going to be doing some who knows what. They're just going to be like doing their own little like exploration and fun time over there like they did with Portal, but this time it's going to be something different as far as we know. And then DICE is going to be dicing around doing the DICE things, but also apparently working on the campaign too, even though they shut down the campaign team with Battlefield. It was a Battlefield 2042, I think it was, right?
Yeah, it would have been. Yeah. Very confusing to think about why they shut that team down, and then during the lifespan of that very game, they're like, oh, let's set up a new one with this Marcus Leto guy
over there, guys.
It's like you could have just kept the team and hired him to run it.
Yeah,
that's like I don't know. It's all very confusing.
And to Yepper's point, he said this in Discord, and he was saying that honestly, we haven't seen a live service game from DICE. Like you can't categorize Battlefield 2042 as a live service game.
Yeah, because it's been fixing it. It's not.
Yeah,
like it has. Done
it doesn't
stuff
add new content. It's fixing what's already broken.
Yeah, like they've had elements of the live service because they've technically done the battle passes and they've added content in that. But a live service game for me is like I actually think the Battlefront 2 is a really prime example of a live service, because although it did a lot of fixing, there was a lot of content that came to that game after launch.
Yes.
and it was done with the fix.
Probably more than 2042, honestly.
Yeah, I think a fair bit more. Like, and to be fair, there was a lot of the new maps that we got for Supremacy, they were just like redone versions. So it's not like that was a perfect example, but I think that's like a one in recent memory that I can think of, because like even Call of Duty with their live services dropped off, they're not putting out as many maps per season as they used to and stuff. So yeah, if we go as far as like other types of shooters, Fortnite is really the prime example of a live service. But in this sort of little mini corner of the shooter genre, like where I consider like Halo, Call of Duty, Battlefield, those types of games, I don't really consider like CS:GO and Valorant and stuff. They're all in their own little. They're more like, I don't know what you would define them as, but I guess more like hardcore arena shooters. I would classify them, because I don't play those. I don't know if they've got good live services or not. And then there's like the battle royale little genre too. But in this genre, you're right. We haven't really seen. I can't really. Not even just the DICE games. I can't even think of any from Halo, Call of Duty, or Battlefield that have been a really good live service. So I don't know. I think that they've got that wrong with. They think that includes fixing the game. No, it should launch good. And you can obviously, every update should have bug fixes. Like, there's always going to be bugs, but it shouldn't be fundamental fixes. Like, in update 5.2, nearly 2 years after launch, we're getting squad management. That is not live service. That is a failure for 2 years trying to implement something that should have been there at launch. That's not a live service. So
that's fixing your mistakes.
Yeah, I completely agree with that from Yeppa, that yes, there are elements of live service. Technically speaking, it's live service. They've added content. It's free. It's like monthly updates, whatever. But it's not the typical live service that I think we all want from a Battlefield game. I want those months of content without like the months in between where it's like, this game isn't fun right now because this thing is so broken that I don't even want to play the new map. When they added there were certain points throughout. To be fair, it's probably more before the season started, but there were certain updates where they added some cool things, but they were just parts that were still so broken that I didn't even play. I was like, I'll play when you fix that. And then a month later they fix it, and it's like, that's not a live service. I shouldn't feel the need to take a month off.
Yeah.
Just to like avoid an issue that's in your game.
Yeah, agree 100%. And I feel like that's going to be the struggle with Battlefield 2042 Season 6, and then whatever ends up being the next Battlefield game, of like striking that balance of what a live service actually is and what it looks like for a Battlefield game to do that. Like, I don't think they should be catching up on the last 10 years of live service. They had the excuse that this is their first one. Now the next one, they don't have that excuse anymore.
Yeah, and I'd like to see them to go back to pushing the envelope and make all these other companies go, wow, that's a really cool way to do live service. Like, now we need to adapt that in our game, because that's what they used to do. Battlefield 3 and 4 and all those games, like, it felt like other companies looked at DICE and went, wow, that's really cool. We need to implement that sort of stuff. And most games haven't been able, like, even with Call of Duty, with Vanguard, they added like a little bit of destruction.
Yeah.
That's like 10 years later than when Battlefield was doing it. And it still wasn't even, it was just like windows. It wasn't even, you could shoot through like wooden windows. Like,
we still haven't reached the level of destruction that Battlefield 4 had.
Yeah. And so they used to like set the tone for the genre. And now it feels like they're kind of playing catch up. So now it feels like they're doing a live service that happened in 2017, like the start of Fortnite. It feels like they're like, oh, let's do that. No, that's from 6 years ago. That's not what the current like industry is doing. So you need to keep up with what's currently happening, and also try to like set the tone yourself and do it. I don't know, change up the battle pass system to where all these other companies are like, wow, that's a really good way to do it. Like, let's, even with Halo did that, even though that game was obviously not gone to their plans. I think that was the first game where the battle pass system, you didn't lose, like if you didn't finish the season 1 battle pass and then you come back and start playing in season 3, that season 1 battle pass is still there to be able to be done. No other game's done that. And like that's a small thing where now I think other companies should do the same thing. So Battlefield need to do that, where they're the ones setting the tone. Because it does feel like they're just really behind the times now, which is a shame because they used to not be. It was the complete opposite back in the day.
Yeah. They need to surpass instead of catching up.
Yeah.
And I don't know how they'll be able to do that, but hopefully they do. But I think with that, thank you all so much for listening to this episode of the Battlefield Show. Let us know your thoughts on these announcements, these little things that they've been teasing, and let us know your thoughts on what the next game is going to be looking like, as well as Season 6. As always, hey, check out our YouTube channels, Sammy Boy and Sammy Boy Star Wars. And hey, if you want to check out some Star Wars stuff, Star Wars Uplink is the way to go. As always, we'd like to thank Ethan Clark for the beautiful thumbnail, all of you for listening, and we'll see you on the battlefield.